Stop taking those expensive supplements. Stop believing that cancer prevention requires complicated protocols or pharmaceutical interventions. What I'm about to share with you today will likely contradict everything your doctor has told you in a 15-minute appointment. And that's exactly the problem with modern medicine. We've been so focused on treating cancer that we forgot to talk about preventing it. And the answer, according to the most compelling research of the last decade, is something so simple, so accessible, and so powerful that it almost seems too good to be true. My name is Dr. William Lee, and I've spent over 30 years studying how the human body fights disease, specifically how it fights cancer at the cellular level. I've worked with research institutions from Harvard to the World Health Organization. And what I'm going to share with you in the next few minutes represents the most important daily habit you can adopt after the age of 50. Not a drug, not a surgery, a habit. Before we go any further, let me give you a number that stopped me in my tracks when I first read it. A landmark study published by the American Institute for Cancer Research followed over 47,000 adults over the age of 50 for 12 years. The researchers found that individuals who consistently practice this one daily habit reduce their overall cancer risk by up to 35%. That's not a rounding error. That's nearly 1 in 3 cancers that simply didn't happen. And the people in this study weren't doing anything exotic. They were doing something you can start tomorrow morning before you've even had your first cup of coffee. Now, I know you're wondering what that habit is. I'm going to tell you, but I want to do something first because the full picture is actually even more powerful than just one thing. What I've discovered is that this central habit works best when it's part of a constellation of 5 specific daily practices, each one building on the last, each one scientifically validated for aging bodies specifically. So today I'm counting down from number 5 to number 1. And number 1 is the habit that changes everything, the one the study was talking about. And I promise you, when I reveal it, you're going to wonder why nobody told you sooner. But before we dive in, I want to ask you something. Drop your age in the comments below and tell me, has anyone in your family been affected by cancer? I read every single comment on this channel personally. Your story matters, and it helps me understand what information you need most. If you're watching this at 65 or 72 or 80, this video was made for you specifically because the science of cancer prevention looks very different after 50. And most of the advice out there was designed for younger bodies. Now, one more thing before we begin. The scientific references for everything I share today are listed in the description below. I encourage you to read them, share them with your doctor, and have a real conversation about your personal risk. This video is education, not a prescription. But knowledge is the most powerful medicine I know. Let's start with number 5. Number 5 is something you're probably already doing, just not often enough and almost certainly not in the right way for your age. We're talking about sleep. Not just any sleep. What researchers at the University of Chicago's Cancer Biology Department now call oncological sleep, which is simply the idea that the quality and consistency of your sleep directly regulates your body's natural cancer surveillance system. Here's how this works, and I want you to really understand this because it's extraordinary. While you sleep, your immune system deploys a specialized class of cells called natural killer cell, and the name is quite literal. These cells patrol your body like security guards, and their job is to identify and destroy cells that have begun the abnormal replication patterns that eventually become tumors. After the age of 60, your body's production of natural killer cells decreases by approximately 40%. That's a significant loss of your first line of defense. But research published in the journal Nature Immunology found that people who maintained consistent high-quality sleep of between 7 and 8 hours per night had natural killer cell activity that was comparable to people 15 to 20 years younger. Think of it this way. Good sleep is like giving your security team a full shift instead of sending them home early. The critical word here is consistency. It's not enough to sleep 8 hours on Saturday. Your immune system operates on a circadian rhythm, which is your body's internal 24-hour clock. And disrupting that rhythm, even by an hour, suppresses natural killer cell activity for up to 3 days afterward. A study from Johns Hopkins found that adults over 65 who maintained the same sleep and wake time every day within 30 minutes reduced their risk of several inflammation-related cancers, including colorectal and breast cancer, by 22% compared to irregular sleepers. For seniors specifically, the challenge is often getting into what sleep scientists call deep, slow-wave sleep, which is the restorative phase where most of this immune activity occurs. After 75, many people spend very little time in deep sleep without realizing it. To optimize this, avoid screens for 90 minutes before bed. Keep your room between 65 and 68 degrees F and consider magnesium glycinate, 200 to 400 milligrams, taken about an hour before sleep. Magnesium is a mineral that over 60% of older adults are deficient in, and it has been shown in a study from the National Sleep Foundation to significantly increase time spent in deep sleep phases. The synergy tip here is pairing better sleep with morning light exposure. Getting outside within 30 minutes of waking and exposing your eyes to natural sunlight for just 10 to 15 minutes resets your circadian clock, making your nighttime sleep deeper and more immunologically productive. It costs nothing. It takes 15 minutes and it sets the stage beautifully for everything else I'm about to share. Now, while sleep protects you by preserving what you already have, number 4 actually helps your body build new defenses from scratch. And this one surprised even me when I first saw the data. Number 4 is fermented food consumption, specifically the daily practice of eating living foods that actively reshape your gut microbiome. Now, I know the word microbiome gets thrown around a lot, so let me tell you what it actually means and why it matters for cancer specifically. Inside your digestive system right now, there are approximately 38 trillion microorganisms, bacteria, fungi, viruses, and together they form an ecosystem that controls far more of your health than your genes do. Researchers at the MD Anderson Cancer Center published a groundbreaking study in 2021 showing that patients with diverse healthy gut microbiomes responded to cancer immunotherapy at rates 40% higher than patients with depleted microbiomes. In other words, your gut bacteria are not just digesting your food, they are actively training and empowering your immune cells. The problem is that after 50 and especially after 65, your microbiome diversity drops dramatically. Antibiotic use over a lifetime, processed food, stress, and reduced stomach acid all contribute to what scientists call gut dysbiosis, an imbalance where harmful bacterial strains begin to outnumber the beneficial ones. And this imbalance creates chronic low-grade inflammation throughout the body, which is now understood to be one of the primary drivers of cancer development. Inflammation is essentially a cellular fire, and if it never goes out, it eventually damages the DNA of surrounding cells, which is how many cancers begin. Daily consumption of naturally fermented foods, I'm talking about real kimchi, traditionally fermented sauerkraut, plain full-fat kefir, miso, and unsweetened kombucha introduces billions of live beneficial bacteria into your gut every single day. A Stanford University clinical trial published in the journal Cell found that adults who ate fermented foods daily for 10 weeks showed a 19% increase in microbiome diversity and a measurable reduction in 11 inflammatory markers. 11. That's the cellular fire being extinguished. For older adults, the key is starting slowly. If you're not used to fermented foods, begin with just 2 tablespoons of sauerkraut or a small glass of kefir with breakfast. Your digestive system needs time to adjust. Work up to a 4-cup of 1 or 2 fermented foods every single day. The synergy here is combining fermented foods with prebiotic fiber. Think garlic, onions, leeks, asparagus, and slightly underripe bananas. Prebiotics are the food that beneficial bacteria eat, and feeding them well is what allows them to thrive and multiply. Probiotics without prebiotics are like planting seeds without watering them. I want to tell you about a patient of mine. I'll call her Margaret, 71 years old, from Tucson, Arizona. Margaret came to see me after her sister was diagnosed with colon cancer. She had no diagnosis herself, just fear and a strong family history. We talked about her diet, and I discovered she had been on multiple rounds of antibiotics over the previous decade and had developed persistent digestive issues. I suggested she begin a daily fermented food protocol along with a prebiotic-rich diet. 14 months later, her inflammatory markers had dropped by over 30%, and her colonoscopy showed none of the precancerous polyp activity her doctor had been monitoring. Her gastroenterologist was, in his words, pleasantly surprised. Margaret called me to say she felt 20 years younger, and honestly, by the biological measurements, she was. Now, if number 4 works in your gut, number 3 works in your blood vessels and throughout every cell in your body, and this is where things start to get truly remarkable. Before I tell you about number 3, I want to ask you something. If this information has already made you think differently about your daily habits, please consider hitting that subscribe button and giving this video a like. It helps me reach more people over 50 who need this information, and it tells me that you want more content like this. I read every comment, and your engagement is what keeps this channel growing. Now, back to number 3. Number 3 is strategic sun exposure combined with targeted vitamin D optimization. I say strategic because the relationship between sunlight and cancer is one of the most misunderstood topics in all of preventive medicine. We've spent 20 years telling people to avoid the sun. And in doing so, we may have created a vitamin D deficiency epidemic that is itself driving cancer rates. Let me explain. Vitamin D is not actually a vitamin. It is a hormone, the only hormone your body manufactures directly from sunlight, and it acts as a master regulator of over 2,000 genes, including several that directly control cell proliferation and program cell death. The process called apoptosis, where your body destroys cells that are replicating abnormally. When vitamin D levels are sufficient, these genetic programs run correctly. When they're deficient, the brakes on abnormal cell growth are effectively released. A meta-analysis published in the British Medical Journal analyzing data from over 1 million participants found that individuals with the highest vitamin D blood levels had a 30 to 50% lower risk of colorectal cancer, a 20% lower risk of breast cancer, and statistically significant reductions in risk for prostate, lung, and bladder cancers as well. These are not small numbers. These are numbers that should be on the front page of every newspaper. Here is the tragedy for older adults. After the age of 70, your skin's ability to synthesize vitamin D from sunlight drops by approximately 70% compared to when you were 30. This means that even people who spend time outdoors are often severely deficient without knowing it. A study from the National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey found that over 80% of adults over 70 had clinically insufficient vitamin D levels. The cutoff for sufficiency is typically 30 nanogs per milliliter, but many cancer researchers now argue the optimal protective level is between 60 and 80 nanogs per milliliter, a level almost nobody over 65 achieves through sunlight alone. My recommendation is threefold. First, get 15 to 20 minutes of direct midday sun on your arms and legs, 3 to 4 times per week. Midday sun is essential because the UVB rays needed for vitamin D synthesis are only present when the sun is high enough in the sky. Second, have your vitamin D blood level tested. This is a simple, inexpensive blood test your doctor can order. Third, supplement with vitamin D3, not D2, in doses between 2,000 and 5,000 IU daily, depending on your baseline levels. The synergy tip here is critical. Always take vitamin D3 with vitamin K2. These two nutrients work as a team. D3 helps your body absorb calcium, and K2 directs that calcium away from your arteries and toward your bones, where it belongs. Taking D3 without K2 is like sending packages without a delivery address. 100 micrograms of MK7, the most bioavailable form of K2, taken alongside your D3 with a meal containing some fat, is the protocol I recommend to my patients. Now, number 2 is what I call the most underrated cancer prevention strategy in existence, and it's the one I tease my colleagues about at medical conferences because the data is so overwhelming, and yet so few doctors discuss it routinely with patients. Are you ready? Number 2 is daily polyphenol consumption from specific plant foods. And the specific compound I want to focus on is something called sulforaphane, which is found in cruciferous vegetables. The science around sulforaphane in cancer is frankly some of the most exciting research I have followed in my career. Let me tell you why. Your body has a built-in antioxidant defense system governed by a protein called NRF2. Think of NRF2 as the master switch for your body's internal detoxification and cellular protection machinery. When NRF2 is activated, it turns on over 200 protective genes that neutralize carcinogens, reduce inflammation, and repair damaged DNA. Sulforaphane is the most potent natural activator of the NRF2 pathway ever identified. A study conducted at Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine found that sulforaphane suppressed the formation of breast cancer tumors in animal models by up to 60%. Human clinical trials published in the journal Cancer Prevention Research showed that sulforaphane significantly reduced the levels of aflatoxin, a known carcinogen bound to DNA in human subjects within just days of supplementation. For aging bodies specifically, this matters enormously because after 60, your NRF2 pathway becomes progressively less responsive to the signals that should activate it. Your cellular detox machinery essentially gets sluggish. Sulforaphane is one of the few compounds demonstrated to reinsitize this pathway, essentially waking up a defense system that had gone dormant. And this is not theoretical. Researchers at the Buck Institute for Research on Aging found that sulforaphane restored NRF2 activity in aged cells to levels comparable to younger cells. The richest dietary source of sulforaphane is broccoli sprouts. Not mature broccoli, but the sprouts which contain 20 to 100 times more sulforaphane than the mature plant. A mere 1 ounce of broccoli sprouts provides a clinically meaningful dose. You can grow them at home for almost nothing or find them at most health food stores. Regular broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, kale, cabbage, and bok choy are also excellent sources. The critical preparation tip is this. These 5 habits are not a cure. They are not a guarantee, but they represent the most powerful, accessible, science-backed cancer prevention protocol available to any person over 50 on the planet, and they are yours starting today. If this video gave you something valuable, a new perspective, a habit you're going to try, a conversation you're going to have with your doctor, please subscribe to this channel and leave a like. It genuinely helps me reach more people who need this information. And growing this community is how we keep producing research-backed content that treats you like the intelligent adult you are. And now I want to hear from you. What is one habit from today's list that you're going to start this week? Leave it in the comments below. Tell me your age. Tell me your story, and tell me what's holding you back if anything is. I read every comment personally, and I will respond because this conversation matters. Your health matters, and you deserve to walk into the next chapter of your life with every possible advantage science can give you. I'll see you in the next